Hey everyone, it's Antonio Galloni. I'm here with Neal Martin. We're both surprisingly sprightly this morning.
Yes,
After two big dinners at Venice Icons, you'll have to forgive our setting. We're in somewhat of a temporary office, as our office downstairs is all full of materials for our events this weekend. But you haven't been here since 2018 in New York.
No, 6 years since I've been here.
6 years. So you had an incredible dinner last night, which we'll talk about in a second. But I thought it'd be fun to taste and talk a little bit about 2021 vintage since. For Bordeaux, since we've both published our reports in the last few days or so, a few weeks. We've got 4 wines here to talk about, and I don't know, where do you want to start?
Should we start with Belgrade?
Let's start with Belgrade.
And I thought this was like, I was talking about Bordeaux being good value, and I thought this is like a lot of quality in a bottle of wine for the price you pay, compared to other regions now, which are some of them getting crazy in price. Bordeaux is fantastic value. I think this is a good example.
Yeah, you have that article on Couffran.
Yeah.
And there's these chateaux that have a very low profile, vis-a-vis, let's say, these, and where like an average person, you could buy a case of this wine,
yeah,
and drink it over years, and do so very affordably. I love this wine when I tasted it.
Yeah. I think more people these days, I've seen actually more people sort of actually going back to Bordeaux a little bit, and maybe in some ways they forgot how much pleasure it gives in a sort of classic style.
So tell us, Belgrade, where is Belgrade?
That's a good question. That is, hold on, it's up towards just past Grula Rose, isn't it?
Exactly,
Yeah,
it's just outside of Saint-Emilion, which
testing
is...
me there.
Well, what's amazing is that it's, it's just sort of tucked away a little bit. I mean, it's just sort of off a little bit, but to get there you pass by La Tour Carnet and other estates that I've always enjoyed. And so you're really very close to some very famous names.
Yeah, yeah.
And so, I mean, it's not like you're in the, I don't know, I think sometimes people think that these Haut Médocs or these wines from less familiar appellations are like way far away.
Yeah.
But they're actually often not. They're
Yeah.
actually quite close. And I mean, this wine is showing absolutely beautifully. It's really fresh. It's very savory.
But it's like a classic kind of style. It's not giving you tons of fruit. But I think if I had it blind, I'd be surprised that it's from 21, like a kind of cool growing. It's a very, very challenging growing season.
Yeah.
So I think it kind of proves, you don't necessarily have to go right to have a first growth to have a really good drinking experience. And I think that's the kind of bottle I'd put on a dinner table, and that's going to be empty quicker than I'd think. I think it's delicious, absolutely delicious.
Yeah, and I'll add that just because of timing and logistics and with all our events going on, we actually opened this wine 2 days ago. And
it's still tasting great.
It still tastes great.
Maybe it's getting better and better in the glass.
Yeah, so we're going to do a little pit stop here. It's we've got a lot of stuff going on this weekend, and we're in this sort of temporary space, so we're perhaps a little bit less prepared than we usually would be. Lynch Bosch. So Lynch was one of the wines that we actually rated exactly the same.
Yep.
And for you.
Thank you.
Let's see. I'm curious. I mean, I think that.
Wow, that's.
I think it's interesting to go back and taste the wines over 2 days because it's just not something you usually do. You're either in Bordeaux or in your office. There's a vast amount of wine to taste. There's always some, no matter how much time you allow, it's finite. And I think it's very nice I especially like to do this with sort of the more high acid vintages, is to open the wines and taste them in a day or two and just see how
I'm
they
amazed
are.
how well these are tasting after 1-2 days.
I mean, this wine has this incredible center of fruit, which it had when we opened it, and it's completely there now too. I mean, sure, like maybe some of the brightness has softened a little bit with air, but the substance of the wine is completely unchanged. At least that's
I like it's got a little bit of bitterness on the finish, like just a little sort of sharpness and salinity. So that if I'm having that, at the dinner table, it's making me want to go back and have a little bit more. And that to me is a really good thing. It's really delicious.
What a beautiful wine. All right.
Yeah.
So,
Thank you.
let's see. one of the things about this vintage is, well, let's talk about the next chateau before we get too far into ourselves. Grand Cantenac.
Thank you.
You know, these are, I think one of the things about these wines, Grand Cantenac is a really good example, is the wines are so affordable.
Yeah.
I mean, when you consider it's not Belgrade, but it's still, in the world of elite wine, you could still buy a case of this.
Yeah.
And for more than a bottle of wines from some regions, and have the pleasure of checking in on it every couple of years for several decades.
Yeah. It'll be interesting to see how long the 21s are going to age. Like, in theory, we say, it's a lighter vintage, so therefore drink them younger. But in my experience, you have to be careful, because I think these wines can age longer than people think. So we're drinking them now, and they are like kind of, they're not easy to drink, but they're drinkable. Like they wouldn't be 20 years ago; they'd be too tannic. But I still think these 21s might surprise a few people, and come back 10, 15, 20 years, I think they'll still be giving pleasure. I mean, there's fruit here,
For sure.
which is amazing considering the growing season. And you wouldn't have had that 20 years ago. These would be green and vegetal, and they wouldn't be anywhere near the quality that they are these days.
Yeah. This wine has more, I think, stronger Cabernet inflections. It's much more sort of
Yeah,
savory
well,
and
Brian
peppery.
Cansac, they always say, is the Pauillac of Margaux. And I think that kind of comes through here. You can tell it's like lighter on the nose than the Lange, but it's got that sort of slight, sort of pencil-lead, graphite-y thing going on. So it's very, very classic in style. It's always quite hard to pick up when I have it blind. It can seem a little bit austere, because Margaux are usually more sort of floral on the nose. And Brian Cantenac isn't quite that style, it's a slightly different style. It's just a really classy wine.
I think it's showing. That's another wine that's showing beautifully.
Yeah.
Doesn't seem to have faded much at all.
No, it's actually mine's getting better than that.
Beautiful. I love the aromatics, and you say it's not that aromatic, but in this vintage, I think it's very Cabernet aromatic. You know,
Yeah.
herbs, but in a good way. Sage and bay leaf and pepper. It's just beautiful wine.
Yeah, it's fantastic.
All right, cool. So now we're gonna hop over to the other side. So far we've had 3 left bank wines,
Yeah.
just by coincidence. We just grabbed what was around.
Did you think it was a left bank vintage or a...
I think that the quality is more consistent on the left bank,
Yeah.
but because the later season favors Cabernet Sauvignon, so I thought on primeur and in the bottle that the quality was better and more consistent on the left bank, but the best right bank wines I really loved. This is one of them. I think one of the major differences between the left and right bank that never really gets talked about a lot is the size of the properties is completely on a different scale, such that, if you go to Belgrade or Lynch, I mean, these are vast, expansive properties. And Grand Cantenac has vineyards all over Margaux, and they're just very different realities. The properties on the right bank tend to be smaller, the vineyards are more often clustered closer together, and I think that in difficult vintages, it's easier for people to do stuff on a smaller scale. And so that is one of the big differences. I mean, there's exceptions, of course, but that's one of the very major differences of the left and the right bank that I don't think gets emphasized very much, is this very different composition of a lot of estates.
Yeah. Again, this has got like a good fruit on the nose considering the vintage. I mean, that's the thing that kind of surprised me, that these wines do have kind of fruit. They're not like flamboyant like you'd get in 19 and 20. They're cut from a different cloth. They're much more sort of classical in style and the one thing we should mention is they're lower alcohols as well. So like every year, lots of people are saying, Bordeaux is becoming too alcoholic, global warming, the wines stylistically are not the same as they were before. So 21 was a sort of going back to that sort of style. So people that want that more traditional kind of claret are going to have, that this is going to be a vintage for them. But you just have to choose very carefully because it's not a consistent vintage by any means. And this is great.
I mean, this has been one of my favorite wines in Bordeaux for the last, dozen years or so, 10 years. It seems like the quality has just gone through the roof. This wine is maybe not, it's for sure, it's not as opulent as some of the other recent vintages, but it's beautiful. I think one of the issues with some of the wines, this has a lot of Cabernet Franc, and I think that, you were asking about right versus left bank. I think one of the downfalls of 21 is there are some wines that are vegetal green.
Oh yeah.
And
Yeah.
and you don't have that at all.
Yeah.
here.
Yeah. If they knew, only there was a publication that told you which wines to buy.
That's exactly.
Anyone you'd recommend?
I don't know.
Yeah.
Well, these were all really, wines that I liked a lot.
Yeah.
There's quite a few. We just published them, and I think, one of the things that we've started to do is sort of make a short list of our favorites. I think that's helpful. I mean, when I look at these articles, 500, 600 plus reviews, I mean, it's just impossible. It's a bear for the average person to have to contend with. So I think saying, it's not in this particular tasting just because it's not here, but I love Calon Segura 21, for example.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think we both like Cheval Blanc.
Yeah. Cheval
We
Blanc.
both like VCC. These wines are, I think, overachievers.
Yeah. Yeah. Definitely.
But it's an interesting vintage, and I think the difficult vintages are the more interesting ones because they're the ones where an informed opinion is more helpful in the sense that in vintages like 18 or 19 or 20, you've got higher average quality, and a lot of the wines do align sort of based on the sort of perceived hierarchies, and I think that, I also love Ducru in 2021, and
that's one wine that might take a little longer to come.
Yeah.
To come on. Ducru, I think, just under sort of 8 to 10 years, that it's quite a big structured wine, even in 21. And I think Ducru is one it's essentially that does need time and it does reward you. So that's one. There's not many wines in 21 I would sell. I'm going to keep back for a long time. Maybe like La Fleur, for example, on the right bank. That's one that I would always keep, irrespective of the growing season. And others are going to be able to pop and pull now, even like the Belgrave, for example.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, that's our take on 21. Anything you want to add?
No, I think that's everything.
All right.
Needs to know.
Great. Thanks for watching.
Thank you
Cheers.
very much. Thank you.